There's a lot going on at the Texas Capitol. A record number of bills, over 8,000, were filed on the 88th legislative session, and there are less than 7 weeks remaining. Important details can easily be overlooked, even on the most critical of legislation. That's why we've asked legislators to come to TPPF to discuss their bills so you know what is making its way through the Capitol. This is The Layout. I'm Jason Isaac, Director of Life Powered, a national initiative to raise America's energy IQ. Today we're discussing Senate Bill 7 with Senator Charles Schwertner, one of my classmates from 2011. Senator Schwertner, welcome to The Layout.
Thank you, Jason. It's good to be with you.
Last session, following Winter Storm Uri, the legislature made some improvements to the grid that have kept us from repeating the collapse that happened in 2021. However, the ERCOT market continues to face problems of increasing variability of the electricity supply. Your Senate Bill 7 seeks to reform the market and reduce the variability of the electricity supply and protects ratepayers from runaway energy bills. So, Senator, what would your bill do to increase reliability?
Well, first and foremost, it makes all types of generation, whether they're dispatchable or non-dispatchable, and even load, to own up to their promises. It sets in place a commitment, a firming commitment, a reliability commitment that if you promise to be there, you're going to be there. If not, you need to pay up.
Wow, so this is something similar to what the governor, I guess, directed the PUC to do a couple of years ago after the legislative session. They felt like they didn't have the clear direction to do, and so now you're making sure that they do.
That's right. And after discussions with Chairman Lake, for instance, of the PUC and others, a firming commitment, a reliability commitment, is a novel concept, but one that is, I think, warranted here in Texas because we do have that increased variability because of the intermittency of things like wind and solar. Certainly it's great when we have very low prices because the sun's shining and the wind's blowing, but there are times of critical stress in our grid when there's extremely high temperatures or extremely low temperatures, and the wind's not blowing and the sun's not shining, which we need firm, dispatchable generation. And so a reliability standard, a firming commitment is important to establish to where Texans are assured that we have the adequate electric resources available when those critical times occur.
Is that really what a reliability standard is that's in the bill? Is this firming?
A reliability standard first sets a bar about how much or what level of assurance Texans expect. That could be a number of hours every year or so many days every 10 years in which we would not have electricity. Certainly you can't expect to have everything work all the time. Nothing works all the time. And so setting that bar, that reliability standard, is step one. But then subsequent to that, how do you get to that reliability standard? And we have different types of resources. We have intermittent and it's dispatchable and non-dispatchable resources. And that mix has variable attributes. And so a firming commitment requires all those assets to promise to do what they say they're going to do. And so basically you can think of a firming commitment as a reliability commitment to equalize the reliability across all types of assets.
Oh, it's amazing. We've put some graphics together that I've shared with some of your colleagues that talk about this variability. And during a certain number of years, we look at the top 40 hours and we show that thermal generation, natural gas, coal, and nuclear, on average, will perform at about 95 to 98%. Mm-hmm. So that's how often you can count on them. And the variability of wind and solar will come in at around 60 to 80%. Wind could be down at 20%. And I was talking to my boys about this. This is like hiring someone to do a job. Well, wind's going to show up one day a week, and you're paying them for 5. You're hiring them to do a job where you need them really every day of the week, but they're only showing up one day. But you can always count on the thermal, it seems like, to show up. So this reliability standard, how is that going to make the lives of Texans better?
Well, first of all, they know what to expect. We as a state, through our state government, would set that standard, and then we're going to achieve that standard by the commitment of the various types of resources that we have in our generation portfolio through setting of a firming commitment, a reliability commitment.
Okay, great. What do you say to claims that allocating reliability costs to unreliable generators will not help grid reliability or minimize cost to ratepayers?
Well, it makes no sense to me. I think certainly having a reliability standard and a commitment that the generators have to match and meet certainly increases overall reliability of the grid.
Do you think it'll send signals to the market that it's time to build new generation?
Yes, I think so. And it will also re-equilibrate the level, the playing field between wind and solar, which get massive federal subsidies, and hopefully over time incentivize more dispatchable thermal generation. It's great to have interruptibles, wind and solar. They do have benefits, and there are low costs associated with them. But you need to have a diverse portfolio that can perform in extreme times, such as high heat and very low temperatures. And so you need that mix, really, to achieve the goals of cheap energy prices as well as reliable and resilient grid.
Well, at the foundation, we support free market principles, and I love it when people start talking about the subsidies, that oil and gas gets billions of dollars of subsidies a year, wind and solar get billions of dollars of subsidies a year, but when you look at it on an energy equivalent, natural gas, it's like 39 cents per kilowatt hour of electricity produced. Wind and solar, $20 and $80 respectively. You just can't compete with that distorted market.
The production tax credits are absolutely atrocious in my mind and completely distort the actual market. They might have been reasonable to consider at the beginning of a nascent type of industry to help build it. And in fact, you can make that case right now for nuclear with small modular reactors. But the propagation of them and actually the expansion of them under the Inflation Reduction Act. I hate even saying that.
Yeah, I know.
But the Inflation Reduction Act and putting them essentially fuel on the fire there, it's just improper, but and wrong and distorts and makes it more difficult to control the grid and manage the operational aspects of the grid, as well as the long-term resource adequacy of our electric needs in Texas. We need power to power Texas into the future, and we need dispatchable thermal generation to help us do that.
It's almost like the federal government doesn't like Texas and our successful model of limited government, low tax, and a predictable regulatory climate. They keep attacking us with these so-called bills that are meant to reduce inflation, but do nothing to do that. All right, let me get focused back here because I'll get distracted and we'll wind up talking for an hour, and I know you've got an important schedule. How will the cost allocation of the guardrails in Senate Bill 7 fix some of the problems with the PUC's current market reform proposal that I think is called the PCM?
Right. Yes, they voted on and put forth a type of market reform that is essentially, in my opinion, a quasi-capacity market for dispatchable generation. And it's novel. It hasn't been tried, although there are aspects of it that have been tried in other areas of the United States. But that PCM model needs to have guardrails around it, and we did that in Senate Bill 7 to where they say it's only going to cost $500 million. We kind of hold them to it and put some price caps on that regarding how much we're actually willing to devote to this type of program. We also devote it to dispatchable thermal generation, and we put in place the firming commitment, firming and reliability commitment, firming guidelines that are in Senate Bill 7, and tie it to the PCM model.
That's fantastic. I know we've heard some positive things about Senate Bill 7, but what have you heard? What are people in the market? What are your constituents, the people that you're sent here to represent and serve? What are you hearing out there about this Senate Bill 7?
Well, people, first and foremost, want to have reliable and cheap energy. And the various permutations of how you get there, they might not be completely aware of. These are complex bills and complex issues. But they believe that there's a distortion that caused Winter Storm Uri and that we need to fix it. And that distortion is partly tied to the lack of dispatchable generation at the times in which you need it. And so Senate Bill 7 speaks directly to that through putting in place a firming requirement, a reliability requirement across all types of generation resources, as well as it also has an ancillary service that is tied to enhancement of dispatchable generation. And then it puts those guardrails and directs the PCM toward dispatchable generation as well. So it does a lot of things, but in totality, it incentivizes what Texas needs long-term to power Texas into the future.
That sounds great to me. It sounds like we're going to see more competition coming into the market. And when that happens, consumers win. Yeah, there may be some higher cost right up front, but ultimately that competition will result in lower cost, more affordable electricity. And that's what we say, affordable, reliable energy makes human flourishing possible around the world. We talk a lot about people that are suffering from poverty in third world countries, developing countries. But it's right here in the United States. You've got nearly 20% of the population will face a disconnect notice from a utility over the next 12 months. And that's heartbreaking. Just saw some numbers that 53% of the people in this country are at their lowest savings ever. And this inflation, really driven by high energy costs, is crushing people not only around the world, but right here in Texas and in America. And so I appreciate your work.
That's a great point. You know, Texas, people think of the miracle here in Texas being low taxes, fair and consistent regulation, no state income tax, and kind of a hands-off governmental approach. And those are all absolutely true. But another aspect of that, not often cited, is the low and low energy prices that have been brought about by competition, energy-only market, that have incentivized companies to move here and set up shop because they can count on those prices to be maintained low and for them to make that marginal difference. And there are actually industries that their energy prices are the primary cost driver in their business.
Yeah, I think some of the work that the legislature did last session has helped us out for a few years. But one of our big concerns, and my personal big concern, is that if Senate Bill 7 doesn't get passed the way it's written today, is that we're going to start to see a big issue in just a couple of years from now. And we're going to see, in my opinion, what's happened in Germany, what's happening in the United Kingdom, is this deindustrialization. And industry has come to Texas for several reasons, but energy is one of them. And if they don't have the energy and the electricity that they need, they're not going to, and they're going to leave. And those signals are getting sent to the market now. So it's so critically important that we pass this reform, that we get Senate Bill 7 passed in the way it's written now, where we have this cost allocation, because that's going to send signals to the market that it's time to reinvest in Texas. I like to say we import jobs and export clean air around the world, because if we increase regulations or cost, we wind up exporting jobs, and then we import that pollution. It comes over from Mexico and South and Central America, and actually Asian air pollution. We're world leaders in producing environmental quality and world leaders in producing energy. We should produce everything right here in Texas that we need. And I think this bill will set the foundation to do that.
That sounds good. Absolutely. We're going to get it done. I have every confidence that in the end, the legislature will come together and do what's right for the people of Texas and the long-term energy security of Texas.
Well, Senator, thank you for being here on The Layout. Thanks for joining us.
Appreciate it, Jason.